Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third in our four-part webinar series, Supporting the Student Journey, a Life Cycle Approach. This series highlights the different stages of the international student life cycle. Today's session focuses on best practices and resources for enhancing on-campus life. My name is Morgan Flanagan, and I'm the Coordinator of Events and Special Initiatives at the BC Council for International Education. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that BCCIE is on the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Now, onto a few housekeeping items. I know we're all familiar with Zoom, but as a reminder, please use the Q&A function to send your questions or if you have any comments. If you require any technical assistance during the webinar, please use the chat box and we'll help answer your inquiry. Please note that this webinar will be recorded and available for viewing on the BCCIE website following the session. Remember that if you attend all 4 webinars in the series, you will receive a certificate of completion. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Ruben Onyango, Director, International Student Services at Thompson Rivers University, who will be moderating the webinar. Over to you, Ruben.
Thank you, Morgan, and greetings to everyone who's participating in today's webinar. I am joining you from our TRU campus in Kamloops, which is situated on the lands of the Kamloops to Shkwatmakulu, the traditional and unceded territory of the Shkwat Nation. Morgan mentioned this is the third in a series of 4 webinars hosted by BCCIE, where we're examining the International Student Life Cycle Framework. Last week, we talked about arrival supports, and today we're on the flight and now we're at cruising altitudes, and for the most part we hope that things are going well, and our job is mainly to manage the student experience. Some students will need a lot of support and some students will need a little support, but ultimately students are here to excel academically, but what we do is give them multiple opportunities to engage with a broader community. So that is where we'll center our discussion for today. Joining me today, 2 colleagues, Anna Zima, who's the Director of Student Services at Columbia College in Vancouver, and all the way from across the country, Lynn Walsh, who's the Manager of Internationalization Office in the Global Learning Center at Memorial University of Newfoundland in St. John. We'll start off with 2 brief presentations, and then similar to how we've done it in the past, the discussions will be centered around certain themes and questions. And so yeah, without further ado, we'll get it started. Anna, why don't you go first?
All right, so my name is Anna Zima, and I'm the Director of Student Services at Columbia College since 2015. I did put the year when I came to Canada on the presentation because it has a meaning to me. It's actually, I got it wrong. I arrived late 88. I realized that this morning. But I remember that because kind of reminds me of my blind spot as an immigrant. I often catch myself viewing student experiences through my own lens. And I kind of feel like I have to remind myself that every student is going through an individual experience, and it helps me to kind of remember that when I think of that year. I was educated at Simon Fraser University for both bachelor's and my master's degree. My journey through education was it was very typical for international student, I suppose, in the sense that when I came to Canada, my English, I came in my early 20s, and I did not speak English very well. So I thought that a great job for myself would be to become a CGA, and I moved on to that path. And then 2 years into that, I got a job at Columbia College for the summer. It was a summer program homestay coordinator that I've applied for that position just for the summer to get a break from school, from CGA. And I really never looked back. I quit the CGA program. I compared the internship of CGA with the Columbia College experience, and I thought, you know what, I think I can learn how to speak English better and feel more comfortable, connecting with people. And I realized that I need these interactions, and the interactions in an educational environment really suited me. So I've switched my education and then continued with SFU through my graduate studies. For doing a Master of Education in Educational Leadership. And I've worked in international education from 1994. So that's another thing that I just realized, that I'm coming up to 30 years at Columbia College. So my perspective is narrow in a sense that I've stayed in one institution. On the other hand, I have, witnessed what happens through different patterns of student arrivals and how the population of student changes in one institution, and how the institution adjusts to these changes, and how quickly or how slowly, and kind of experienced all that. Of course, my key focus areas are academic support, student engagement, and in more recent years, since I became a director, I think that personal student development had become an important thing that we really pay attention to. So I work for Columbia College. Columbia College is an interesting institution. It's a nonprofit society and a registered charity. We've been in existence in 1936, and the next slide will show you how we started. We are located in Vancouver, and we've been around for a long time. We've changed campuses, and we've gone through Burnaby, downtown location, and now finally we have our own building. And I think we're quite comfortable where we are. The interesting thing about Columbia College is that our institution started in 1936 as a SurePass matriculation. So not too many people know about it. I'm not going to spend very much time talking about it, but essentially, initially, Columbia College was kind of helping out soldiers coming back from the war to get their high school degrees. And then we kind of transformed into Columbia Junior College, when we're predominantly a high school program, into what we are right now, Columbia College. At the moment, with all the transformations, Columbia College, so these are our programs. We have University Transfer Program, Associate Degree Program, High School Program, and Academic English Program, EAP. Majority of our students are right now registered in Associate Degree Program. Within that program, we offer Associate Degree in Arts and Science. Our University Transfer Program has shrunk in recent years, but that was essentially for students who wish to transfer to university immediately after completing Columbia College, to maybe 2 to 4 semesters, depending on the student. Our high school program is, it used to be the largest program at one point. Now we have about 100 students in that program. Overall, I should have said, we have 2,300 students. So only 100 students, about 100 students are in the high school program. And our academic English program is shrinking and getting smaller at the moment as well. And we don't really anticipate too much growth in that area. For student services, we've got, our student services are quite robust in the sense that we really take on students from a pre-arrival stage to walking through the graduation platform moment. So anything in between, we somehow get involved in. For academic affairs, we have 7 academic advisors. So for 2,400 students, we have about 7 academic advisors that kind of assist students throughout their studies, but really focus on a lot of energy into first semester students, because we feel like this is the biggest learning curve for students to get through the first semester, and it's important that they understand their degrees. So we kind of shadow them through the first semester quite a bit. We have also we have a position that is dedicated to student success. So that position deals with students who are finding challenging going through education at Columbia College. So probation students, double probation students are assisted by this person, and also all the plagiarism cases. We have a dedicated person that spends time with students, helping them understand plagiarism, and plagiarism has become so complex recently. We also take care of scholarships. So our department manages the scholarship ceremony and participates in selection of scholarship recipients. For student development, we do have students. Student development is essentially working on developing students' career opportunities, and that means that we have the essential technology and workplace skills program, which is essentially a monitored program for students who want to participate in LinkedIn Learning, or even things like typing. We have the programming for students to help them develop skills that are beyond academic, to kind of assist them in things that they're interested in the most during the first semester and during the first 2 years at Columbia College, because all of our students, or most of our students, I would say majority of our students, are working, and they are work and getting meaningful employment is always on their mind. So we give them great, I feel it's great career support. And we also have a student employment program. And I think I will have an opportunity to talk about that later on. I just want to move on for the sake of time. Health and wellness, we have how many counselors? I think we have 4 counselors on staff right now, and we have 2 nurse stations. So we use our counseling services to offer different programming for mental health, but also we do use them heavily as an educational component in situations where we don't want to enact our policies, but rather use the experiences or situations with students to use them as an educational moment. So oftentimes we refer those students to counseling to kind of help them understand the norms that we have at Columbia College, and kind of try to help them understand what is going on, rather than use the punitive elements of our policies that we could enact. Nurse station, we really found that students love nurses, and it's probably because our nurses are really lovely people to talk to, and oftentimes students will choose to speak about their mental health in the nurse station, because these are just compassionate listeners. And they don't usually ask students to do any homework, where counselors oftentimes put students to work. But so our counseling services is really assisting us and working together with student services, which we are really grateful for. Student life, I'm sure you guys have very similar setup. Student activities and events are run by student life coordinators. We have 2 student life coordinators. We have 1 immigration advisor, manager, and we also have one full-time housing person on staff. So I'm not going to go into great details into that unless you guys have questions about it. And also under our student services, we manage learning center. So that's where we have accommodations, testing, and tutors that are available to students. And that kind of concludes my student services overview. That's our setup. The next slide, I would have to mention this. Yes, charitable programming. So we are able to, I'd like to acknowledge that we are able to fantastic staff in student services because we're a nonprofit society, and the college is supporting charitable programs. So we have resettlement and bursary and WUSC students at Columbia College because of this funding that we receive from the charitable side of Columbia College. We have tuition installment program that really great helps students kind of manage their finances. Our students are struggling financially, and I would imagine that is what's happening in your institutions as well. Student emergency support program. We get funds to use student emergency support program for things like dental bus. So one semester we have a dental bus that comes and does dental work on our students. And we also have a community cupboard. So for students that are experiencing food insecurity, we have lunch boxes, and we also have deliveries of food that they can pick up from the fridge in student lounges. We have connections with a couple of clinics, dental clinics. We have direct billing with them. So if we assess students that they're in need of emergency work, we can fund that, and we can quickly move on to help when needed. We are not a public institution, so we don't have a UPass, and that is the most asked questions by students. When are we going to get a UPass? Which is not possible for a private institution. So we have access cards, so we have subsidy. So we give students each semester a bit of help to help for them to get transit passes. Most of our students are commuter students, and they live far. They live very far, 3 zones from the college. So the cost of transportation is quite substantial for them. So that is why the Access Card Fund has started. I mentioned Essential Technology and Workplace Program. So this is something that helps students learn skills that make them more employable. And our community connection programs is we have about 39 students in it that we place in nonprofit organizations, and we pay their salaries. So every semester we have new positions coming up, and students can apply for it. And those students that don't get in, we put them through the Essential Technology and Workplace program, so that next semester they can apply and hopefully get in. The biggest pride of today for me, because it's actually on Thursday, is the Limitless Student Conference. So I need to kind of remind you here that all of our students are international students. So we have come up with this idea that international students are more than their ethnic food. And it's really wonderful to give them an opportunity and platform to hear their perspectives on different things and ideas. And Limitless Student Conference was created for exactly that purpose. Once a year, we shut down all the classes. It's all staff and faculty and everyone that works at the college attends presentations by students. We have a serious lunch. They have lanyards. We basically, wanted to create a sense of conference set up for it. So and that is happening actually this Thursday. We are hoping that at some point we can grow this conference to a point where we can invite other students from other institutions to present. But it's a great pride for us to have this as we I believe there's no one else who is doing this, and it kind of started from student services. So we love that. So yeah, a lot of good things that we can do for our students is heavily funded by charitable side of Columbia College, and that is very, very helpful. So yeah, that's Columbia College. Thank you.
Anna, thanks for sharing a little bit about your institution as well as your programs and the great wraparound supports that you offer as well. Lynn will give you a few minutes to do the same, and then we'll get on discussion questions.
Well, hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're to. It's 2:55 here in St. John's right now, so I'm 3/4 of the way through my day, which is lovely. So a little bit about me. I really appreciate being invited and sharing what's happening here on campus at Memorial in St. John's. So about myself. I was born in St. John's. I'm an uninvited settler, and I'm very appreciative to acknowledge the diverse histories of Newfoundland Labrador as Beothuk, Mi'kmaq, Inuit, and I'm very thankful and appreciative of being on this land every day. I've worked at MUN for over 22 years. I started after I finished my BA, really didn't know where I was going to go. I loved my program, but felt just really uncertain of my direction. Worked at a daycare for a couple of years. It's a little rudderless, I suppose, and got a job, a 6-month contract working at the front desk of student services. I started in career and I've been at MUN ever since. So 6-month contract rolled over into a very lovely and highly educational career opportunity for me, which I'm very grateful for. I started managing the internationalization office in 2016. Before that, our supports and services on campus were kind of separate. Like student advising was one unit, international center was another, and then they merged when we had our strategic plan, which I'll talk about in just a second. I work with a great team of 9 advisors and admin staff in the area of mobility. I'll show you a photo of our new space, just some of it, but it's a student, all of our offices in our student space. I was very lucky to go to BCCIE in June of 2022. It was wonderful in Whistler. It was a wonderful training and PD for me. It was really, really, really great. I couldn't go last year because we were hosting the CBIE regional. And I'm on my way in a month for a road trip to California. So we had to postpone our vacation last year, but a nice little holiday coming up soon, which I'm very much looking forward to. So a little bit about MUN, where it's the only university in Newfoundland Labrador. We've got multiple campuses where students are enrolled. Majority of our students are in St. John's campus, but there are equally awesome programs that happen at different campuses, just smaller populations. And out of 18,000, we've got about 4,680 international students. So we've got quite a large number of students, and very, very, very good student services support. Excluding our team, good support services in the area of student affairs and services, and certainly grad students as well. And that's just a little picture of our campus. I forgot to put myself on a timer, so just a second. I want to make sure I'm doing this right. Okay, so. And a little bit about our office. So we're responsible for actioning our strategic plan. Many of you out there at your colleges or universities may in fact have your own strategic plan, international or otherwise. We have a plan for the institution, but we have an internationalization plan as well. And so we have a number of goals. I took out just a few just to share, like, increasing global awareness, certainly supporting our international students and their spouses as well, and enhancing opportunities for MUN faculty, staff, and students to get some intercultural competence opportunities, develop their skills, and enhance their global awareness. So support at Memorial. Just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of kind of what we also provide. I know there's been sessions before that talked about the like students, getting accepted and coming and then arriving. So I don't want to go too long here, but a snapshot of some of the services that we also offer. And again, I want to reiterate, I work with a really lovely group of people, and the advisors that are in our office are just so fantastic at what they do, always learning, always unlearning, and expanding our supports. And it's never a dull moment right now. I think IRCC is just like deciding, throwing everybody through a loop with all these changes that have happened over the last few months. So I think we're all across the country doing the best we can to manage within the ambiguity that is international education right now. And just a little a photo of our space. I just wanted to show that to you. It's quite beautiful. I was responsible for really overseeing the renovation. Previously, we were located in the basement of this building. Lots of good work came out of a very small space, but now the students have just a beautiful space to hang out and host events, cook food, always an important piece, but it's a space for us to also have our events, our meetings, and our gatherings. So just thought to share that with you. So a couple of slides when we were talking about the structure of the session was sort of just really talk about how we engage and support our students. So we are involved with them prior, certainly to their arrival, when they find out they're accepted and they connect with us, or we reach out to them and supporting them on their way. But when they're here and settled in, what we've expanded, new programming, things, our population is growing, the diverse needs of our students are growing, and with that comes room for change, and we need to meet the students where they are. So we have a lot of different programming and opportunities for engagement and supporting our students that we do. Hopefully there you can see we've been running reoccurring social programming every week. It's just a chance for students to come and just disconnect, get some snacks, cup of tea, coffee and biscuit, and just chat away with other students, especially if they're new. Or what we found is a lot of students that are here are still quite lonely. So it's a really great way for students to connect with their community. Our immigration sessions that are offered weekly, lots of workshops and involvement with immigration lawyers in the province that actually come on board and do sessions for students. That's another way that we support them. Academic needs. So our outreach advisors support students with like personal, financial, and academic questions and concerns they might have. So they can come to us. Our office is not responsible for academic advising. So we do have, like, within the registrar's office at the undergrad level, there's an academic advising office. It's a wonderful group of people, and we work quite closely with them. But we would refer and defer to them for any sort of pertinent academic advising questions. But we do kind of be very aware and make it purposeful learning to be kind of cognizant of dates and deadlines, and like who should you speak to within your program or your level and whatnot, what have you. Our families, we have a lot of groups for our moms, for our women students who identify as women, and the women's support group. Keep Me Safe, which is through Guard Me. That's our foreign health provider. We use the 24/7 app there for students to access mental health supports. And our social space, as I showed you, it's used quite often. We've got it booked actually this weekend as a way to, students can just have a nice, clean, lovely, bright space to go to hang out and do what they want to do. Watch movies, celebrate cultural events, have their association meetings, make food, cook food, be together, that kind of thing. So we are also supporting students and diverse students as well. Like in 2020, we welcomed our first WUSC scholar under the Student Refugee Program. And we've been, I think we have had 5 scholars so far, with the 6th arriving in September. And we have a lot of our international students that are part of the local committee. And I think it's a great way for students to get involved and engaged, while also supporting diverse new students. They land as permanent residents, but they certainly still have a lot of questions as a newcomer. We have some international transgender student resources and a colleague on staff that is someone that a student can meet with to talk further about questions or concerns that they have. We have on-campus support advice affairs. We attend weekly grad officer meetings, so the School of Grad Studies. has a weekly sort of drop-in sessions where students can just plop in, ask their question, stick around, or take off if they get an answer. Or if there's sort of a common theme that comes up in the webinar, then the officers make note of sort of topics and things that they might need to address in a mail out, in future follow-ups, additional resources on their website, whatnot, what have you. And we have a lot of get-togethers in our space as well. The one that I showed you, yeah, a little bit of details there about how we avail of that space. And I think the last slide for me is in terms of connecting with community. So I just wanted to mention this, again, how we support students, but also the community to connect with our students. We have, for many years now, we've had reoccurring appointments that the Government of Newfoundland Immigration Office holds for students who want to meet to talk about PR pathways, labor market information. So there are, every Friday morning, you can, they have appointments opened with like our provincial immigration officers where students can meet with them to talk about immigrating to Newfoundland if they wanted to, work opportunities if they wanted to. It does, yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say there. Partnership with the Public Legal Institute in Newfoundland, Labrador. It's been a great help. They also have virtual office hours, and they have been a wonderful resource for not only housing and tenancy like rights, but just legal rights in general. Certainly workforce. We're seeing a lot of questions from students. They're here, they've been working for a while, and then something just strange or just downright not good has happened, and they need some advice. They would like to speak to someone about what their rights are as an employee. They have been a great resource. Housing, we've had residential tenancies come on board to host some sessions, as well as real estate agents. We were very surprised to learn that lots of students were very interested in purchasing a home. So that was kind of neat. Service Canada, our provincial healthcare card clinics. Our career advisor also does a fantastic job of connecting students with the employer community for volunteer opportunities, and our provincial funding sources are student employment opportunities as well. So what I guess I wanted to highlight is what we are finding, that since kind of post-COVID, we are seeing more students come around. Last year was very weird. This year, we're seeing a lot more traffic come to our space, drop in, go to events. And I think we forgot to do it, but we're back into the habit again of finding out to ask students, what is it that they need? What are they looking for? What do they not see? What things have been changing over the last couple of years in terms of how we interact? Certainly all of the changes, the geopolitical climate, what's happening globally, currencies, and all those aspects. The students are really dealing with a lot, and so we find it really important to sort of just connect with them and find out what they need and how we can help them do that, or connect them with the right people and collaborate with them at the same time.
Thanks for sharing the great resources that your team and your institution is offering. It's I know that the mental health support, and it's also good to see that we're offering supports for families that are coming into students, right? That's been a change over the past several years, and it's good to know that we're supporting not just the students, but we're supporting their dependents as well. All right, so we have time for a couple questions to discuss here, and I'll throw the first one at you, Lynn, and it's related to academic advising. What are some best practices for universities and colleges to provide accessible and effective academic advising services to support the diverse needs and goals of international students?
Sure. Thank you for that, Ruben. So I had some time to really think about this because well, of course I did, but also at the same time, we don't, our office isn't responsible really for that academic advising kind of piece of support for students, but I thought about it in a couple of different ways. And one, I have a few that I just wanted to mention. So I think it's really important that we help our colleagues learn, like when they're advising international students, about when to refer to our office if they see or suspect that a student is in a situation that may quite honestly impact their immigration, or they're not sure, right? So I broke it down into sort of three sort of categories, because the thing is, like, with course registration, like for undergrads and grads, is so different, right? Like at our institution, we don't have a leave of absence for undergrad students, but there is a leave of absence for grad students. So it affects documentation very differently, right? And status and all of those impacts. So, and I'm speaking from my area of sort of experience from the international student realm. You know, not being registered or changing or unsure, not even so much programs, but minimizing your courses, depending on what you need, can really impact your study permit. But for us, it also impacts their health insurance eligibility. So those pieces are always super important. It's like that heightened, like, oh my God, okay, so what do they have? Let me check what's going on. This is a big deal. So I think, some best practice. One is, I think, having a discussion with your colleagues. Like, we're the only university in Newfoundland, Labrador. We're a small, big city, I guess, and we really utilize social capital. So we pull on our colleagues in our different units to really help us to, talk about a situation, talk about a student, first name basis with colleagues. That's worked for us because it has to. We don't have anyone else to defer to when it comes to these situations. We have to go to, my colleague Echo in academic advising. I have to call Carolyn. I have to do this and that. So for us, I think it's you availing of and really working and managing and really maintaining those relationships that you have, so that the end of it all is the student. That's what's most important. And our immigration team, holds open meetings for faculty and staff about questions you have about international students and their immigration regulations, if you ever had any questions. So I think that's just something I wanted to highlight. I think too, for our team, I think we need to be, as advisors and just colleagues in international education, attentive to the calendar, like the diary of dates and deadlines to drop and add, being aware of promoting that to students so that they're informed. There's a lot that students need to keep track of. Like, a lot of, we know they're working, they're going to class, they're going to labs, they're here with their family, like all of those other minutiae details under studies that may be just missed. They could have forgot, they may not have realized, who knows what have you. We also have outreach advisors in our office. And Ruben, you can stop me anytime if I go on too long here. Our outreach advisors, like they help students with personal, financial, and academic issues and concerns. And a lot of it is that our international advisors and outreach help students with academic appeals. It'll help them, if there's a situation with the supervisor as a conduit, or kind of connect to, right? Like we can't deregister you, we can't do anything, we can't really talk to you about this program, but I can work with you to say, let's talk out a strategy. This is what I think you should do. This is who I think you should talk to. Or write a letter to profs. Like a couple of weeks ago, we had some students who were displaced because they had a flood in their house, and they were like, well, I need to talk to a prof about my courses, or can you maybe put us in touch with someone in academic advising? Can you just vouch that this has happened? I don't know what to do. So I think it's sort of that support piece that we can provide. And the third one is the grad studies. Like that's a different level. There's course-based, research-based programs, there's grad diplomas, there's masters, there's PhDs. Is a very sort of different sort of flow to the term for grad students versus undergrads. And so I think if we give students forums where they can actually ask these questions in a safe space where you can meet them where they're to, and that we as staff, like in our office, we have colleagues that go to the grad meetings, right? That can sort of see and kind of attend those meetings and really talk about like what's happening and what's going on. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it was good. I think it's one of the things that always stands out to me when we're looking at grad and undergrad students is their needs are so different. And it's also interesting that there's an immigration piece, for most students, taking a break or, wanting to reduce your course load has no implications, but for international students, there are lots of little pieces that have to be put together. So it's always important that we're collaborating with our colleagues across campus so that we're providing the best advice to students. Anna, do you have anything to add to what Lynn said?
I just want to add a couple of things that we do specifically based on our student population and how they engage in academic advising. Initially, and we play with this orientation idea, how much information to put in orientation when it comes to academic advising. And students are really, we were just overloading them, and then we would pull back, and then we would add and try different things. And we have learned that there are a few things that worked really well for us. And we have employed 4 students to be the front desk in student services. So all of our students are international students. I just need to remind that I'm not making, our titles don't have international in it, because all our students are international. But we do hire 4 students to be the front desk in student services, because oftentimes students feel more comfortable speaking to another student. So that is something that works for us for 2 things. We really try to employ as many students as possible on campus. So right now we have about 50 student employees. That, you know, ties into engagement and all kinds of other stuff. But for student services, it really helps students to feel more comfortable talking to peers rather than reaching out to academic advising. Also, we really want to engage with first semester students. You know, during orientation, as I said, super overwhelming. They're dealing with so many different things. They really don't care to hear at that point sometimes, because they're just not able to cope with all of that, about the degree audits, about the path of their education. They just want to know, what courses do I need to register in? And we put them through those courses as quickly as we possibly can, because we really have noticed that they're not engaging with the information. So we have student ambassadors that we have hired to engage with all new international students, the ratio 1:40 we have. So these student ambassadors or students, again, they're employed by the college and trained by the college to connect with international students prior to their arrival. So 2 weeks before the arrival, they start working with the students in hope that any kind of questions that students may have will come through to the right people. Also, they work through the registration time and during the entire first semester of student life at Columbia College. And during the first semester, particularly for academic advising, we give students incentives to come and do course planning. We really feel that there's a value in individual appointments to get the student into advising, to sit down with them, to kind of check what's going on, do the check on, you know, how are they doing with accommodation, for food safety, financially, you know, what is their comfort level with the degree audit, you know, do they understand what requirements their program has? And to get them to our office, we give them an incentive of slightly earlier time of registration. So students who do keep those appointments do get priority of registration over the students that don't, and that seems to be quite successful. So those are the couple things that are specific that we're playing with to get students in and to make that connection. That is what we work on every semester. We work on getting better connection with the student and, you know, catching really the students that don't want to be caught.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I'm often reminded of my own experience where, you know, academic advising was such a foreign term to me, such a foreign concept, because I'm from Canada. You know, you go to school, you go to university, and you're told these are the courses you're doing, right? There's not a lot of flexibility. So, you know, I could have used some of those incentives when I first came here, but sometimes you live and you learn, and worked out in the end. But yeah, I think it's good that we're giving students all these opportunities. So the next question is about building inclusive communities. How can universities create inclusive and supportive spaces for diverse student identities and students with disabilities to foster a sense of belonging and community on this?
Okay, Okay, I'm going to be as quick as possible. Now, I feel like we're zooming through this. This is a really good question. I have to say, I really had to think about that one because there is, of course, the physical space, and that's a discussion to have with operations to make sure that everyone has access to every space of the building at all times. But I think that there needs to be a broader approach to equity, diversity, and inclusivity at an institutional level. And, if the institution really prioritizes the EDI and is patient with the process and patient with the how slowly the mindsets are changing, that change creates much safer environment and much more inclusive environment. So it's actually not the physical spaces that we need to change, it's the mindsets and creating environments where students feel comfortable in every space of the college. Physical spaces are important, and some of our students need quiet space. So creating quiet rooms for students and having access to specialized counseling, which we try to offer through the SES program, the Student Emergency Program. If we identify students who need specialized counseling, we have a quick mechanism to put them through to external resources that can kind of help them with any adjustments issues or any challenges that they may be facing. Again, we're really fortunate that all of our students are international students, so we hire all the staff with the mind of that. That's part of the interviewing process. We tell instructors, this is the population you will be working with. Are you ready? What is your experience? And that often helps already hiring staff that is kind of comfortable with international education of international students. The class sizes are smaller. The connection between the instructor and student services is quite close. If, for example, we have students who do not attend classes for a couple of weeks, most of the time we get an email from instructor saying, something happened clearly because the students stopped attending. We try to reach out, and most of the time we are able to figure out and see and assist students to get back to class. So accommodation officers, again, this looks slightly different in our institution because all of our students are international. So, they don't maybe feel us out of place to start with, but it's just a lot of communication between staff and between students. I have to bring up Limitless again because I feel like this is really a good example of how to show all students that we value their perspectives, whatever there may be, and encouraging all students through event planning, through organizing multicultural, but showing them that they are equals. We've often would organize in the past these potluck dinners, and they were great, but I was just tired of making Polish food. I'm Polish. And I was thinking, like, I'm more than just the Polish food, there's more to me than pierogies. And that's why I thought that, really giving students an opportunity to show us how resilient and how unique and how wonderful they are. Giving those opportunities, everyone comes up with their own ideas. I feel like in the moment, Limitless is on my mind quite a bit, but there's other things that each institution can do to show students that they're important. We all want to feel respected, and we all want to feel like we belong. So big push on EDI. We've had bad experiences initially when we started these initiatives because we had external consultants that came quite strongly with strong policies, and we were just not getting the right results. But I feel like right now we are on the fantastic path. We have a wonderful external consultant that comes in and does a lot of training and gives us really simple tools for students, for staff, what to do in very specific cases. There are case studies, and it's enjoyable and it's a non-threatening. It can be done. Which, if you asked me, 5 years ago, I would go like, oh, it's, how are we going about it? It's really creating more problems than making positive change. But I feel like it's people that need to change, not really that much of the physical spaces.
Thank you. Lynn, do you have anything to add?
Sure. I got a couple of notes in no order of importance, but when thinking of inclusive and supportive spaces for diverse students, I think what we've, since we moved into a new space right before kind of COVID, and then we came back, we've been having more signage like in our office and on our doors about like, this is a safe space. We have, like all of our staff have their information on their doors, in terms of their the pronouns that they use, so that students just know the environment when they step in, that the level of comfort, that should they wish to have an appointment, and sort of knowing that speech and that dialogue can be made in that communication in our common rooms. We're working quite often with community resources to share that with our students that reach out to our advisors about different community supports, if they have referrals, what's going on in their life, if they know of a student who just has a question or concern, or they just want to avail of supports and services that aren't exactly offered on campus. Our space itself wasn't accessible before the renovation, and I mean that very literally. If you had a wheelchair, I broke my ankle last year. If we were in the same workspace, I wouldn't have been able to come into the office. You had to go down steps. There was no elevator. It was very, the ramp outside was like a luge, no joke. It was unsafe. So it was awful. So when it was renovated, it's now an accessible space, which is so important to students and their families and their dependents and their little ones and our members of our community, when we try to expand our relationships and just, try and sort of, create an environment for conversation and for dialogue, that we have a space that's accessible for our learners and our community members. But it's also like, you think of like inclusive spaces for our families, like family group was today, so there's like, it's a space where moms and their little ones can either upstairs or downstairs. Downstairs has got the mats, so it's smaller, there's less harsh edges for little fingers and little faces, but our space up here for like a sort of safe shared space for students who are moms who want somewhere to go, and yeah, that's kind of a few things I wanted to just mention on that point anyway.
Thank you. But I think key messaging here is we need to be very intentional about how we approach this. I've often heard it said that sometimes EDI is, it's treated kind of like a flavor of the day kind of thing, but institutions that approach it that way are usually not successful. We need to invest the time, and we need to really listen to stakeholders and work with our colleagues on campus and in the community. Just being cognizant of time, I think I'll stop the questions there. I'll stop the discussion questions there. Lynn, I see that you answered a question in the chat, but there's a question that's been asked by Tristan. Thank you for the presentation. And the question is, how do you assess the programming in the student services portfolio? How do you know you're getting the right level of resources into the right programming areas? I'll open that up to either of you.
I'll jump in real quick. We've been very fortunate to have some interns who have been in our space over the last couple of semesters, whether it's social work intern, nursing intern, guidance counseling intern, kinetics, and they really helped us in doing some assessment on our services and our programs. Most recently, like literally last Friday, we got the results from the nursing students that came here for their community placement, and they were doing some very random surveys at the front desk and in our social groups and just connecting with students to find out what were some of their concerns, top concerns kind of from the semester. And the number one concern came from eating healthy on a budget. So, which was interesting to hear and find. We do struggle with assessing because it's sometimes done off of the side of people's desks, but we have made a conscious effort as of 2023 to sort of do a better job of not only assessing but also compiling data. And our immigration advising team has an assessment model built in. So every semester they do a peer review, they do quizzes, they do assessments with their students and with their own learning. So they've actually done a pretty comprehensive model of that service area in our team.
If I could add to that, we generally just listen to what the faculty has to say, what the students have to say. I'll give you an example of faculty reaching out to us and saying, we feel like we have students that maybe would benefit from educational assessments. There may be some signs that the students weren't assessed back and before they came to Canada. And so, really separating these voices from a noise is really important. So really actively listening, and that is a challenge that I'm sure you guys hear about. So we've made a connection with the Adler, and we are bringing assessors to the college. So we have students assessed at the College for Psychoeducational assessments. And so really listening. Usually students, if your student services team is communicating with each other, you will be able to hear what it is that students are experiencing right now. The food insecurity was a big thing in the recent years. So and we sometimes just try things. And we, on a smaller scale, on a pilot project, and that was the case with the food cupboard initiative, and students are really using it. We weren't sure whether students will be comfortable. So sometimes just trying things is the best thing to do. But oftentimes, if you give students an opportunity to tell you what they need, they will tell you directly what it is, and that is the best source of information.
Thank you. Yes, key point. I think you gotta get feedback. Your work needs to be informed at some level by the feedback that you get from the stakeholders who are involved, and students are the biggest ones in this case.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, Ruben, just post-COVID, what we're just finding is that we got to meet the students where they are. Things have been so different the last few years that they're starting to engage a bit more, and we're just starting to hear more about what they need and how to provide that. So
thank you so much for sharing that. So I think we'll stop it there. Anna and Lynn, thank you for sharing your insights and best practices today. To everyone else joining us today, please come back next week as we conclude the webinar series with a discussion around how to support post-graduation transitions and strategies for continued community engagement and advancing inclusivity post-graduation. Thanks again for joining us today. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Morgan, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Ruben, for moderating, and to Anna and Lynn for sharing your valuable insights. We'd like to hear any feedback from you. So if you could take a few moments when you log out on Zoom and fill in the survey, that would be greatly appreciated. And as Ruben mentioned, the final webinar is next Wednesday, March 20th, titled Graduation and Beyond, Alumni Engagement and Entering the Workforce. And the registration link is on the BCCIE website. Have a wonderful day, everyone.